Short answer, yes. This video was kind of a clickbaity kind of title, but I only wanted to do that because I thought it would be kind of cool to kind of make this a sequel video to my previous video about how I talked about the Nintendo 64 controller. Is the Nintendo 64 controller really that bad? No. And is the GameCube controller really that good? Yes, it is, honestly. So this is more of a positive video, like, well, I guess the previous video with the Nintendo 64 controller was pretty positive as well, me explaining why I love the Nintendo 64 controller, but I'm here to talk about the GameCube now, and explain why I love the GameCube controller, and I'm sure some of these points will be towards reasons why other people love the GameCube controller as well. And you know what? Just like my Nintendo 64 controller video, we're pulling out a different color. Purple's the classic, but we're using the black one because this is my main GameCube controller that I use when playing GameCube games. And also as well, I use this in like the GameCube controller adapter for Wii U, and I think the original Switch it was used for as well. Like I know that my GameCube adapter works with Switch because it's a third-party one, but I'm not too sure if that adapter works. If there was an adapter actually made for Switch. But you know what? I can use GameCube controllers on Smash Ultimate, okay? And I didn't have to buy the new Switch Online GameCube controller to do so. So clearly there must be a reason why the GameCube controller is like Nintendo's basically best controller, because they keep on bringing it back. Like the Wii had compatibility with a GameCube controller because the Wii was backwards compatible with GameCube. The Wii U brought back GameCube controllers for Smash Brothers for Wii U and had the adapter for it so you can plug in original GameCube controllers, but as well they had like third-party ones that can just be plugged into a Wii remote like a classic controller. Not as good quality-wise, but it's still like them bringing back the GameCube controller. And then for Switch, you got the GameCube adapter there, I think, for Smash Ultimate only. And then as well, you got the recent Nintendo Switch 2 GameCube controller wireless re-release for Switch Online expansion pack, and can also be used for Smash Brothers, I think. So, I think myself and a lot of people love this thing because of just how, like, weirdly this controller just works. Like, first of all, it's really comfy. Second of all, the joystick is an improvement from the Nintendo 64 controller by a lot. It's a lot bigger. I'd say, like, texture-wise, it's fairly equal to the Nintendo 64 controller, but because it's a bigger joystick now, it feels a lot more comfortable. It has these amazing analog triggers right here, which I think, at least with the original GameCube controller, the only time that the analog was ever used, because I don't think, like, I'm not too sure if the Switch 2 GameCube controller has the analog still, because I know with, like, re-releases of, like, Mario Sunshine, for example, through Mario 3D All-Stars, they ended up, like, scrapping the addition of analog, even with the GameCube controller compatibility being a thing with the Switch one. So correct me if I'm wrong with any of my facts. I would highly, highly appreciate anything like that. But as well, there's an actual C-stick this time. Honestly, it's not good. Like, this is absolutely not good at all, at least in my personal opinion, because of how small it is. But I do prefer it over the C buttons from the Nintendo 64. So we'll take wins when we can. There's only the start button, there's no select button again, with just like the 64 controller. This time there's an X and Y buttons here, but the way that the space buttons work is the A button is the biggest button here, and then the B and Y and X kind of surrounds it, the B being the smallest button, and the Y and X being slightly bigger than the B button, but of course smaller than the A button. These were kind of arranged in this way, so all like GameCube main titles and exclusives and stuff like that kinda has to be set up with the phase buttons, and all just kind of melts in your thumb area a little bit. Like the A button is made for the main thing you're going to be doing in the game, and then the other stuff is just like secondary stuff, and you just tap it there, tap it there, tap it there, while you're still holding like the A button, for example. It's really, really comfortable, and I really enjoy that it's pretty convenient to use all these buttons whenever I want, compared to a standard like a controller that just has the cross style or X style, whatever you want to call it. I don't really know how to describe it, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, because every other controller has a lot less of a weird setup like this. But trust me, I know it looks kind of scary, and originally I thought it was scary too. I thought that the GameCube controller was one of the worst controllers out there, until I actually used it, and this thing is fucking incredible. Like, holy shit. It's just so great to use all these buttons like this. Now the problem is that the only time that these phase buttons work is with GameCube titles. Other games, like if you use it in, minus like Smash Brothers, it works just fine still to this day, because I have a feeling that they were always like, they had GameCube compatibility in every single Smash Brothers game since Melee. Brawl had it because of the way that we had backwards compatibility. Smash for Wii U, of course, because the GameCube adapter, and then Smash Ultimate with the GameCube adapter, and I'm sure the Switch 2 GameCube controller works with it now as well. So Smash Brothers is fine, but if you're ever planning on like playing other games with this controller, like for example, I think like the best example of like trying to use this controller for like a different kind of game is with like the Wii's Virtual Console, for example. That's all I can really think of, is like if you're trying to play like Super Nintendo games on there, because it does support GameCube controllers if you don't happen to have a classic controller. And playing Super Nintendo games with the GameCube controller sucks. Like I think like the biggest example all of us could think of with the Wii's Virtual Console is like playing Super Mario World, for example. Like the normal jump button on the Super Nintendo controller for Super Mario World is the B button, and that's fine. And then the A button is the spin jump. Now the thing is that because it's a Mario game, you have a run button, so you'd either have to go like, you'd have to press the Y and B button, which is really uncomfortable, plus you have the chance of still pressing the A button over here. And then if you're trying to do it like this, you'd have to use like 2 fingers, and if you do it like this, you'd still be hitting the A button. So it just doesn't, it only works with GameCube exclusive titles, and that's like the only bad part I can think about this controller, is the fact that the only games that work with this are GameCube games and Smash Brothers. But at that point, it's just like every other controller. You can say the same thing about the Nintendo 64 controller, with it being designed for the Nintendo 64, and it just fits perfectly with Nintendo 64 exclusive titles. And also this D-pad kind of sucks. The thing is as well, this thing has built-in rumble. I'd say it might have been one of the first controllers with built-in rumble, I think. Maybe not. I think maybe like the PS2 beat that, or something like that, to copy off like Nintendo when they made the rumble pack on the 64 controller. But this is the controller I think had like started making like rumble the standard. The Wavebird controller, which is the wireless GameCube controller for the original GameCube, didn't have rumble, but it was one of the first true wireless controllers that functioned properly. It used like radio waves, radio channels or something like that, to connect the different controllers together. If you had like multiple, you set it to one channel, and then you set another one to another channel, and set one to another channel. So yeah, the GameCube controller is pretty damn incredible. I barely have anything to talk about this, so let's just talk about why is there only one shoulder button here. That's kind of weird. You can kind of like compare some of the button amounts to like the Nintendo 64 a little bit. Like it has the C stick, and it's kind of like out of the way, it's smaller, and kind of it's kind of like a normal C stick, but it's just like more useless because it's small, you know? Like it's not useless, it's just kind of like bad, and that's kind of like the C buttons in the Nintendo 64 controller. It has like the L and R buttons and then the Z button, like the Nintendo 64 controller, which was the L and R, and it had the Z button, which was the middle prongs, left shoulder button. It had basically the same texture of the joystick. It had a D-pad, and it only had a start button, not a select. It only had a start button, and the only additions that the GameCube controller made was the Y and X button. So honestly, I think that they might have thought about like making the GameCube backwards compatible with the 64. I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to think that way, because it has the exact same amount of like buttons and stuff used for the 64. Like there's not two shoulder buttons, there's two triggers, but there's one shoulder button, and there's 3 shoulder buttons on the Nintendo 64 controller, and the only thing they added here was the Y and X button for its own titles. And I don't think that's too far a stretch as well, because it has like the same 4 controller ports like the Nintendo 64 to have like that 4-player compatibility on the console itself. And as well, it weirdly, if you're playing like on the Nintendo 64 Virtual Console on like the Wii, most of the games honestly feel really good with the GameCube controller, I'm not gonna lie. Like, they function really, really well with it. Like, of course the game will function because it's just emulation, but it just weirdly works with the GameCube controller, so I don't think it's too far a stretch to say that Nintendo was at least thinking of having the GameCube be compatible with 64 games. But of course, because it's a cartridge and not a disc like the GameCube games are, that's probably why they scrapped it, of course, because it's just like extra costs that you don't really need. So yeah, I ended up not talking about the controller for most of this video, I'd say. But hey, bye.